I'm so excited that you're here, and that you're doing this. And yeah, this is Whitney. She is so important to me. She has been such a big part of my life the last couple years, and whew, just so
Cue the
significant.
tears.
Just means so much. So, I guess we'll start with, who are you, Whitney? Who you be? What you do?
Mm, the opening question. I am, on the surface, I'm a coach. I work with women around trauma and sexuality and coming into their power and connection to just their beauty and their greatness. And so that's like my line of work, I guess. But in the deeper way, I feel like I'm like a soul stirrer, fire starter. Yeah, this kind of channel for divine feminine wisdom and power and energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you so are. You just so are. That's exactly it. Yeah. So we just finished a 9-month journey that ended in Mexico that was just so incredible, called Threshold. And it's the maiden the maiden to mother journey and all of that entails. And I'm curious just to hear a little bit for you what birthed that, how that journey first started, what it was like to take women on that experience in such a deep, big container. So, yeah, wherever you want to start with that.
Yeah. Threshold. Yeah. So I've been in the coaching space for almost 5 years and really focusing in on supporting women with their sexuality and their connection to their bodies, and then trauma resolution work. And so I had no intention of ever taking women on a maiden to mother journey. I wasn't really even super familiar with what that entailed, or like the philosophy behind that. And but here we are. um, so where it kind of started, I think, was before COVID hit. So this was probably the fall before COVID hit. So what was that? 2019. I was pretty successful in my work, but I could feel this sense of like, the best way I can describe it was there was something deeper that I couldn't get to. It felt like I was in a house with like, floorboards, and there was like a basement that I was supposed to fall, like be able to get to. And I kept having this sense of like, yeah, but there's something else, there's something else, there's something else. And looking back now, I can see that that was really the beginning of kind of what that feminine energy that was pulling me into the underworld. That was like, yeah, there is more, and you need to figure out how to get down there. It was like things were going well, stable relationships, stable business. I loved my work for the most part, but I was like, yeah, I don't know. There's like something else that I can't get to. And I remember even being on a call with some friends of mine at the time. We were doing like a little, we got together weekly for this little bit business mastermind. And I kept saying that. I was like, I don't know. There's like something else I'm supposed to be doing. There's like something else. And then COVID hit and the world changed. And my partner, Kevin, and I really felt called to leave LA. We had been feeling that for a while. I'd lived in LA for 13 years. And it really felt to me like the messages I was receiving were, you're not going to get to this deeper layer in LA. You're not going to get there with just the frenetic, chaotic kind of energy of LA. And you need to be closer to nature, and you need a big change. So we decided to move to Colorado, and that transition really sent me under. It was like the biggest grief portal of probably my life to date. And it was so like a multitude of combination of things, but it was like we couldn't find a home. We felt really strange. It was a strange time. My grandmother died, then my grandfather died. I had all of this like latent grief that was really coming up, and I was really in it. And so, in that transition time, it just felt like I couldn't land. I didn't know where I was. It was like this whole kind of like, who are you? What do you do? Well, I was still like trucking along in my business, but it was really like, okay, there's like something deep that is ready to shift in not only what you're doing, but just like who you are. And in the opening of a lot of that grief of moving and the death of some of my grandparents, what started to open up was grief in relationship to my mom and my childhood. And it was like, that shit took me under. Like, I don't think I've ever experienced like a grief portal like that before, where it's just like you never knew where it was going to come from and how long it would stay. And it was just like wave upon wave upon wave. And it was so intense that I decided to take a full month off from my business. I stopped all my clients. I didn't take on any new clients. I was just like, I'm just going to dip into the little savings that I have because I need a pause.
Yeah.
And then it was right around that time that I also started trauma training with Rachel Maddox, her program called Rebloom. And it's a beautiful, beautiful program. And the opening of it, I went with a friend to Santa Fe to do like the opening retreat. It was virtual, but we decided to get together. And I got there, and something happened when I arrived, because it was like energetically my system knew something big was coming. I felt like I went into like a plant medicine state, and I've only done plant medicine once. Actually, that might have been the start of, of the underworld journey, actually. Or that was a part of it that I didn't touch on. But it just took me into this alternate state. And what started to happen was like, you're not going to be able to do it alone anymore. That was like the biggest thing that came through. And like emotion's going to come up here. It was like, you need people, you need friends, you need support, because so much of the grief and the wounding was just feeling alone. Right.
Yeah.
And then it started to, it just started to be revealed to me. It started to kind of open up, where it was like, well, this isn't just a personal challenge. Yes, I have personal challenge with my own mother, but this is more of a collective wounding and a collective trauma for women. The disconnect from their mother is because their mothers were disconnected from their mothers, and disconnected from the earth, and disconnected from circle, and disconnected from the feminine wisdom, and disconnected from their sexuality, and disconnected from their body, and disconnected from circle and the cycles of nature. And it just was like this kind of huge opening.
Yeah.
And I just kind of kept falling into it. I didn't really have a choice. Like, it was like, it was conscious and also not. It was just like, I think because of the sexuality and the embodiment work that I've been doing over the past 5 years, plus some of the spiritual work I've been doing for the past 10 years, it was like, yeah, you're ready. And we're going to like pull your ass under, because this surface level Whitney who's still playing by the rules and is still trying to please everyone and is still trying to do all the right things and say all the right things and have the right image. As much as I thought I'd sort of escaped some of that, because I've always been a little bit of a black sheep, it was very clear that I was still playing by a lot of the patriarchal rules. I was still stuck in the game.
Yeah.
So I was just like really, succumb to what was moving that I didn't really have control over. And then I was in a session with a coach of mine, and I remember, like, it was so silly, like what came up in the session. I was like, yeah, I just feel like, the more that I reveal myself, the less people like me, and have this thing about trying to fit into like the cool kids club, or, like being aligned with certain people, and am I good enough, and blah, 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 all the things that can happen on Instagram, and, being in a certain location.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling her, like, yeah, it just feels stupid. Like, I'm sure, everybody deals with this stuff. And she was like, well, just because everyone doesn't mean it doesn't matter. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's true. That's true. And she's like, let's work with that. And so we started to kind of just drop in at the body level, like, what's here? What are you noticing? What comes up? And it was like clear as day. I saw this like split down the middle of my being. And over on the right side, it was just like this like black chaos, death. It was like, and what immediately came to mind was like, oh, this is the culture that you're oriented to. Mm-hmm. And, what came through was, yeah, if you keep looking over there, you're never going to feel good enough. You're never going to feel like you have the right thing to say. You're always going to question yourself. You're always going to be spinning in self-doubt. That's what this does to you. It's by design. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. I felt very clear. It was like, yeah, if you keep looking over there, then this is where you're going to stay. You're going to spin out forever in the self-doubt and the questioning and the wondering, am I good enough? Or blah, 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 blah. Am I worthy? Am I deserving? Can I have the things I want? So it's like, okay, got it. And then over here, I started to like orient over here. It was literally, I was like eyes closed, like turning over this way. And it was just this like beautiful field, almost like a sprawling vineyard or something. And it was just like rose bushes and flowers and green and wide open space and sunshine. And there was just this woman, and it was like me, but not me. And she was naked. She was just chilling, like on a gravel road, like smelling the flowers, feet in the dirt. And what became abundantly clear there was like, oh, this is the mother space. That's where the maiden is oriented, the wounded maiden. She's trying to find her worth, her purpose in a culture that spins her out, that doesn't respect her, that doesn't love her, that doesn't give a fuck about her, that actually is built to do the opposite, right? And so over here, it was like this woman just enjoying herself, smelling flowers, like this beautiful naturescape. And it was like everyone who wants her medicine just comes. They just come to her because she's so full and she doesn't need anything from anyone. And there's just not really any effort. Like people just want to be around her because there's this like beauty and this flow and this connection to herself and the beauty of the world. And so I'm like feeling these two sides, and I'm talking with my coach, and I'm like, okay, interesting. And I just sort of sit in the vision of it. And then what starts to happen is this reality just comes all the way into my being. So it kind of pushes this other one out. And then there's like a little sliver of it left. but I feel that come over, and my coach's name is Jody. And I was like, Jody, I think I just entered mother. I was like, I think that just happened. And she goes, yeah, I think so. I was like, did that just happen? She goes, yeah, I think that just happened. And it was like so like gentle and beautiful, but just
Mm.
such a strong imagery of like, this is where you have to orient. This is where you're going to find what you're looking for.
Mm.
And this is the next phase of like your evolution, is to orient to this like divine, powerful, feminine, great mother energy that is like filled from the inside out, rather than this where it's like, I'm trying to get something from the outside to fill something within.
Yeah.
And it just never works.
Yeah.
So I had that experience. It was like my whole world sort of changed in like, a 60-minute coaching session. And I was like, is this what happened? Just kind of questioning it. But I kept sticking with it. And, I started doing this practice of writing to the great mother and having her write back to just like anchor this relationship. I was reading a lot of like Marion Woodman and these women who talk about this journey some more. And as I just kept connecting and trusting that energy and feel like owning, yeah, something just shifted in me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not this like innocent woman who's just like trying to like begging for the love that she wants. I am the love, and I exude the love, and I give the love because like it's in me.
Mm.
And I feel like that just reoriented my whole being, the way that I looked at the world, the way that I felt about the world. My body changed. Like my body felt like it turned into like a woman body. I've
Mm.
always been a super thin person. Like I never had boobs. I never had an ass. I never had a belly. And now it's like, oh my God, like I had this voluptuous, like, womanly body. And it's just like an interesting parallel that also changed, like the external changed with the internal. And from there, I just kept getting this sense of like, I don't know, I'm supposed to teach this. Like I'm supposed to guide women through something like this.
Mm.
And it was probably a, 4 or 5 month back and forth with myself and working with my coach of like, I don't really know anything about this. Like, I don't have any framework for this. I didn't like take a class on this. I didn't study this. This isn't my expertise. And the message I kept getting was just, you're supposed to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do this. You need to create the banks of a river that you can flow in. And this is important for other people. And I was like, okay, are you sure? I don't know. Ooh. Just like all the things that are like, who am I to do this? Or there's other people that like do this for their living, and this is like what they're known for, and this is their thing. And here I am, like, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm gonna throw it out there. And the biggest thing that helped me like really go for it was so Rachel Maddox, the woman I was doing the trauma training with, she invited one of my friends who was also in the training with me to do this ritual to support her in kind of this like threshold transition in her life. And she invited me to come. And I witnessed this. And it was like she invited all of these people that she loves to witness her in this, like, this is what I'm stepping into. And it was just the most like stunning, beautiful thing. And I just was like completely wrecked. And it was like, you're gonna do that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. And so, email people. I was like, hey, it was like a Thursday. It was like, okay, Sunday at 3:00, I'm going to do this thing. I want to step into this new arena of my teaching and just owning who I am. I'd love for you to be there to support me. Hope you can make it. Most people could come. I had like maybe 10 people on this call. And I read this whole like speech of sorts of like, this is the journey I've been on. This is where I want to go. This is what I want to invite women into. This is what I want to teach. I want to like do this thing. And it was so beautiful. And it was like, so beautiful. And then every single person I just requested, like, I just want like your love. Like, I want you to reflect back my genius. I want you to like, I just want your support. And every person was like, oh my God, like you can so fucking do this. Are you kidding? And I was like, really? They were like, yes.
Yeah.
And that was like a big part of, you know, that initial lesson of like, Whitney, you're not going to be able to do this on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to bring in people that can reflect back to you.
Yeah.
Especially because that was like such a part of my mother wounding. It was like, I never got accurate reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, not only did I not receive accurate reflection, but it was like I think a lot of times my mother felt threatened by my exuberance or my joy or my, you know, wildness. And so I always sort of questioned myself and questioned my skills and my desires. And so that was a really important moment. And from there it was like, well, there's no going back now. You can't be like, oh, sorry guys, actually, like, I'm not gonna do it. Just kidding.
Yeah.
So and then we were off to the races, and then the real party began.
Yeah. Oh, there's just so much in there that like I resonate with. Like I too like left LA when COVID started to happen and had been feeling like this call just for something deeper and like something more, and like something in me kept whispering and beckoning, and it was just like it would be almost like cryptic, like, you know, like bare feet, woods, like breath, water, right? And there were these like huge pockets of grief and like kind of dismantling and like dying and like just this really murky, mucky place. And yeah, so much had opened up in me by starting to work with you with the sexuality work in May of 2020. So, like, these things were starting to kind of like crack me open. At the same time, there was this calling and this beckoning for like more of you, more of who you are. And like, so just resonating with all of that. And then, like, what a beautiful alignment of then you were like, and here's a portal and a container to do that in, and that piece of like not doing it alone. Like, this container was the first time in my life I have ever felt this type of like true belonging with other women. And that in itself is like the deep medicine that I for sure needed, and like so many of us need. And so, yeah, just really, really celebrating the part of you that kept showing up and kept saying yes and created this container that we're like, you know, with groups and with retreat, like that allowed for enough of a space for something truly powerful to occur, right? Like that initiation, that threshold, that crossing, it needed to happen in that way. And needed to be in the collective, and needed, you know, all of the parts and pieces that came together. So yeah. Is there
Yeah, I mean,
anything
that
else?
was like the biggest intention that I had for the journey. Was I knew I wanted it to be intimate, and I knew that I wanted people to feel like they were journeying together and they actually knew each other. You know, I've done some amazing group programs and I'm so abundantly grateful for them, but they didn't give me that sense of deep belonging or like we're in this together. And I got that from people that I started to gather from the outside or in my personal life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I really wanted to see if I could facilitate something like that for others. and I didn't know if it would if it would happen. But it's part of like the parameters. It was like, we're all going to show up to the live calls. Like, this is what we're doing it together. We're gathering in circle together,
Yeah.
and then we're going to go meet and everything's going to click. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And the
so
magic happens.
and
Yeah.
the magic happens.
Yeah. I'm curious, just people who are listening, women especially, who are curious about this, like this maiden to mother journey, right? It's you see it out there, like there's been like more talk about it, I feel like, at least. Maybe it's just what I'm like orienting to, but I loved when you talked about the difference between like ascension and descension, right? Descending down and like the underworld, and then also like the myths of the patriarchy and like what we tend to embody from that and like take on as messages. If there's anything in there that like you want to speak about, just to give someone like a little bit more context of like, what is this? Yeah, this, I have those self doubts. Yeah, I definitely don't feel good enough. Like, so what's that all about?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to it, but at its core, this is in many traditions, but particularly the Celtic tradition. There's three phases of a woman's life. There's the maidenhood, like your youthful years, then you move into mother, which doesn't have to be, of course, actually carrying child or having children, more of an energetic space. And then the crone. So you could follow it like the seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter we're in like the death portal, or like a flower, right? The
Mm,
maiden is like the bud, the mother is the woman in full bloom, and then the crone is like as the petals kind of start to fall and she's sharing her wisdom.
mm,
So in in intact indigenous cultures, of which there are very few, there's always an initiation process for people to go through, women and men, all people in the community, right? And Bill Plotnick talks a lot about this, and I really love his work. But
mm-hmm.
ideally, we have these phases of life, and part of what we do in adolescence is we find out like who we are, who our people are, what our skills are, and then we go on this initiatory journey to be able to really own our unique medicine, and then be able to be a contributing, valuable member of the community. Like, everyone's medicine is unique. But what happens in this culture is we can see it in every direction, like just rites of passage or initiatory processes, they're just shattered. And
Yeah.
so even as people age, a lot of people don't mature,
Yep.
right? We've got a culture, and you can see this all over, the highest offices of the country, the politicians and government and, big business and all that. It's like most of these people are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, but at heart, they're 14-year-old men and women,
Yeah.
boys and girls.
Mm,
And for women in particular, so if we lived in intact cultures where there were rites of passage and we were, singing and dancing around fire and in community, our maiden wouldn't be wounded either. But because
mm,
we live in a patriarchal culture where women are less than, and everything that is connected to the power of womanhood. So your menstruation, your sexuality, your pelvis, your intuition, your body, like birth, all of this, all of these things have been so severed by patriarchy, because at its heart, patriarchy's job is to um, diminish or sever or oppress any power that women have that men don't have. So what it's created, and it can show up differently for all people, but for the greater pattern is, okay, to get love, I have to act a certain way, I have to be a certain way, I have to disconnect from these parts of me that the greater culture believes are wrong, dirty, stupid, bad, gross, a waste of time. And I have to align myself to the greater culture that prizes, productivity, domination over the body, money, success, all of these, kind of markers in this culture that say that you're a valuable person.
Mm.
It's like the patriarchy, the capitalist system. But what happens for most women is they start to reach middle age, and they've had a certain level of success. They have the degrees, they've gone through the programs, maybe they have the babies, or they have the house or the husband or the partner or whatever it is, all these things that the culture said these are the things that will make you happy. And then there comes a time where I think all women experience this, whether they move toward that soul calling or not is the real question. But they look around and they say, is this really it?
Mm. Yeah.
I feel empty. I feel spiritually void. I still don't feel like I have the love that I need. I feel disconnected from myself. And and there's so many ways that this shows up. It's like consumerist culture, and for women particularly, okay, well then let's stay young because our value comes from our youthfulness. So
Mm.
let's spend all of our money on clothes and beauty products and Botox and surgeries and the things that make us look like we're valuable to this culture.
Mm.
But obviously it's not going to fill the deep spiritual void that women have in their, the innate makeup of them that is connected to the divine, that is connected to creation, that has a deeper medicine to give than what they look like or how they fit into a male dominated culture.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll pause there. There's so much to say, but
Yeah, there is so much to say. And it just, yeah, like when doing this work with you and going through this journey, I really felt like how necessary this is. Like, how much my mother needed this, and like women, and just really feeling this starvation, almost like this real hunger for actual nourishment actual nourishment that comes just from that deeper place within that we get so disconnected from so early. And it's just quite a journey to get back to it too, because there's so much unwinding. And I think that's kind of maybe
yeah.
the next question I have, of like some of the through themes that you see for challenges, for longings, for unwinding, with women, with men, with one on one, these kind of like core desires, and also like core woundings and challenges that you see.
Yeah. Mm. Well, I'll start with the woundings. I think one of the biggest roadblocks that women possess and people in general is that they've become so the culture has become so ingrained that they can't even envision a possibility outside of it. And that's part of what I really love about a lot of my work is I mean, like, there's a whole other possibility of how we
Mm-hmm.
could be relating to ourselves and what we could be doing. And so, I mean, at its core, the wounding is, you can trace it all the way back centuries and centuries with the rise of patriarchy, the disconnection from the goddess and from the matriarchy, right? Separating women and all people from the rhythms of the earth, from sacred circle, from communal living, from raising babies in community, from just a way of being where women's bodies and their gifts were respected and honored.
Yeah.
And then we've got the rise of patriarchy, where agriculture comes in, property gets split, women and children become property, and it becomes more about how much can we gain. And also this, there's so many layers to this, but like the kind of rise of Christianity too, of like women are the cause of all evil, your
Mm.
bodies are evil, your sensuality is evil, your, you know, the witch hunts, all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so at its core, I think most people's wounding is a disconnect from the great mother or the feminine or the earth, however you might label that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is most people feel they don't feel rooted, they feel aimless, they feel like they don't have purpose. Because again, we're not in a community where it's like, okay, you're going to go into the forest, you're going to fast for 3 days, and great mother or great spirit is going to show you part of what you're here to do. Or like you're going to hone your medicine, and you're going to come back and you're going to have mentorship, and we're going to help you, and you're going to like embody the skills that your soul came to enact, came
Yeah.
to share, right? um and so there's, yeah, people, it's like a disconnect from earth, which is a disconnect from body, a disconnect from purpose, and a disconnect from community. I
Mm.
think those are probably like core three.
Yeah.
And so people are searching and searching and searching. Okay, it's going to be this job, or it's going to be this partner, it's going to be this opportunity, or it's going to be this house that I buy, or this vacation I go on. And it's all still falling short for most people, because what they're really after is like, what is the soul of me that wants to come forward and be of service to a world that's hurting,
Mm. Yeah.
you know? And for women, it's like, what's the joy, what's the pleasure, what's the possibility that I get to reclaim in that process?
Mm.
And how do I trust that if all I see is this shitstorm, you know, this inundation of everything that is soulless, right? You know,
Yeah.
Michael Meade talks about, he says this line, he's a mythologist and just a wise elder. He's probably in his 70s or 80s now. But he says, you know, to be modern is to be lost.
Mm. Yeah.
We're so lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I think without, for some people, the journey to the underworld is, they're going to get tugged under a little bit like I did. I was sort of asking for it, but it's not going to be conscious. And then for some people are like, okay, I need to go and reclaim these parts of myself that got severed along the way,
Yep.
that I need to reclaim to start to feel whole, to step into my purpose, to feel aligned to the truth of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, 98% of those pieces are pieces of the feminine.
Yeah.
Your wildness, your
Absolutely.
sensuality, your sense of belonging with other women,
Mm-hmm.
your trust in your body, all of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really feel it as like this universal um, need and wounding. Like, you know, even going through this and now hearing my partner, you know, start to talk about and be interested and, you know, feeling curiosity around it, because there is like this reclamation that needs to happen of the feminine in general in like a huge way. And unfortunately and fortunately, a lot of the portals into that reclamation are like through the stuff that people don't want to feel, the grief, the
Mm-hmm.
shame, the humiliation, like, right, like these things
Yeah.
that like we will do anything but feel, especially in the body, right? We'll go
Yeah.
and we'll talk about it. We'll get lots of talking support, but this journey that is just is just necessary in order to come into more fully human, more of that wholeness and that bigness, and the truth of who you are. And then that's where you can connect to purpose. You can connect to what you're meant to be doing. And there's not that lostness. There's not that skimming the surface that is just like so prevalent. Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, just really, yeah, really
Yeah.
grateful that you're doing this work.
Thank you. Grateful you came on the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and so many people, I think most women would say like, fuck the patriarchy, or, down with the patriarchy. But it's still so intellectualized.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's like, okay, if we're not aligning to the patriarchy, what the hell are we aligning to?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's such a big part of the maiden to mother journey is now I'm orienting to the great mother. I'm orienting to the cycles of nature. I'm orienting to the truth of my body. I'm orienting to more communal living, or, just these tenets of feminine wisdom. But it's like, yeah, you can say like, in the example of my kind of initiation in that coaching session, it's like, yeah, I could say like, I don't want this. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want this death trap. I don't want to be oriented to this culture. But if I don't have anything else to orient to, then I'm maybe even more lost. I'm in a kind of purgatory.
Yep.
I'm spinning in nothingness. So what I love about this journey and this framework is this is what I'm orienting to now. I'm orienting to this mother wisdom where I fill myself up from the outside in, where I trust soul, where I listen to something greater than me, where I feel into the rhythms of nature, where I have a community of people that I can rely on, that I can depend on, where I'm serving from my medicine. It's hard to do that. And I've tried, right? It's kind of like how my business was built and how a lot of people do it is like, okay, I'm going to like teach these feminine principles, but oops, years in, I'm like, oh shit, it's still
Yeah.
aligned to patriarchal capitalism in a lot of ways. Oh,
Mm.
gotta go dive down to the underworld and figure out a new way to be.
Mm. Yeah.
And it requires meeting grief, and it requires meeting the shame. And yeah, like you said, most people are scared of that, but it's liberating.
Mm.
It is the
Yeah.
liberation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that why of like, well, yeah, you get to be free. You get to be wild. You get to be you. Like, you get to actually live life and be here and have this intimate, deep relationship with life and with yourself. Like, that's the big why. And just really feeling that important piece of what am I orienting to, right? Because there can be so much of like, well, okay, I don't want this and I don't like this and this is corrupt and and then you just kind of like you said can just end up lost in all the things that you don't want. And like to have something that you're in devotion to, that you're returning to, that you're turning towards and connecting to is what I think, is the real catalyst for all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like every time I turn here, I'm in forgetting.
Mm.
And so what do I orient to? What do I turn to? What do I look to remember?
Mm. Yeah, I love that.
Remember the deeper truth.
Yeah. If you had a magic wand, what would you have humans or women or people remember?
Hmm. Hmm. Here's one of those moments because the part of my brain's like, no, that's not it. And then the greater wisdom is like, no, that's it.
Hmm.
Um, just the love of the mother, the
Mm-hmm.
love of the great mother.
Yeah.
That's like never ending.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular whenever I choose to invite that in a coaching session or in anything, right? Even if they're like have no idea what I'm actually talking about, like you can feel it. Like
Yeah.
you can feel it come in, you can feel it soften, you can feel it. So, yeah, that's a beautiful beautiful answer. I feel like I have like 1,000 other things I want to ask you, but I do want to I think I think the last thing I'll touch on before we move into like sexuality is because this is just another part of this journey that I found so profound and powerful and important that you speak about is anger and reclaiming rage and boundaries and needs. I hear from so many of my clients, especially women, like, I don't know what I need. I don't know how to get what I need. I don't know how to express my needs. I don't know how to receive my needs. And I feel selfish for doing so, right? I have so much shame and
Mm.
and just all of that on top of it. And I hear it from men too, right? Like I don't know how to get my needs met, and then if I do, I'm an asshole, right? Like I shouldn't do that, and all of this just conditioning around that, and then also being more of the embodiment of boundaries and not having it just be like this thought process of like, well, what's okay and what's not, but really embodying them and the role that rage and anger plays in that.
Mm. Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll touch into is when I hear women particularly say, I don't know what I need. What I hear is not that they don't know, it's just that they've never had the space, time, and permission to actually tune in with what they need.
Hmm.
And this is big in sex, right? Um, and lots of different arenas. Um, so I mean, the thing with needs too is it's so developmentally young. It's part of our attachment wounding, right? And this is like baby to, very young, 3, 4. I mean, it
Yeah.
can go up to any number of ages, but really those formative years with the mother in
Mm-hmm.
particular
Yeah.
of, can I get my needs met? And is it safe to be me,
Yep.
right? In what I need. So, when I work with people in this arena, it kind of depends on the framework. If I'm using, if I'm in the maiden to mother world or the mother work, then it's how do I connect with the mother and that energy to feel into the safety of needing? How
Mm.
can I need with her? Right? For most people, it starts to feel unsafe to need with partners or parents or friends because humans have let us down. They're fallible, or we have trauma with other humans.
Yeah.
But so what's beautiful about working with like mother energy, or I don't, for some people, it's not good. They're not going to necessarily connect to mother energy, but it could be like some sort of resource. It could be a unicorn. It could be, a big polar bear. It could be a big willow tree that feels like a grandmother. But like,
Yeah.
what is something that you can start to conjure that feels like a safe place to come and just feel your needs?
Mm.
So that's a great place to start. Another piece of this is, and Rachel Maddox does a beautiful job of this with the archetypes that she uses in Rebloom, but needs for her are connected to this archetype of the soul seed.
Mm.
And the way that she frames this is, yeah, the soul seed is this developmental part of you. It's the seed in the garden. And it's not about worthiness or deservingness. It's just for the seed to be able to come into its fullness, it needs certain nourishment.
Mm-hmm.
It needs water, it needs sunshine, it needs to be sung to. And so taking off some of the shame layers of needing, which is what the patriarchy wants us to do, right? You need to be completely self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And it's all about um, not needing.
Yeah, especially as
Don't
women.
need
Like,
anything.
yeah, you're the ones that need to be the human givers, not the human beings, like to have the needs is just like so selfish. You need to be selfless. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's just a matter of fact. It's like, these are just the things that I need to be able to grow and thrive in the way that I'm meant to.
Mm.
And if we just took off the judgment around it, and you did a practice every day of just like, okay, I'm just going to grab my journal, and if I could need anything, I'm just going to write out the things I might need. It's a great place to start. But also what happens, I've done this a lot with clients, is the things that they think they need are just physical. Well, I need more water. I need, sunshine, or I need, to eat better food. And we're still ingrained in this thing. But your needs, and this is part of why people also get confused around their upbringing of like, I had everything that I needed. Why do I still feel unloved? Or why do I have these attachment wounds? You're not just a physical being. You have emotional needs, you have spiritual needs, you have creative needs, and you have physical needs. Most people are feeling malnourished or depleted in emotional, spiritual arenas, right? They're like, okay, I can go exercise, and these are things I can do on my own. I can go get some food, or I can sleep more. It's like, yeah, but that's not going to fill the hunger of the real emotional or spiritual needs. And then that kind of goes back to like the Maiden to Mother journey. But it's really kind of like taking time. What if I like spent time with myself? If I knew that I mattered, if I knew that I mattered as much as anyone else, what would I need?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's such
wow.
a
I
good
actually
question.
need to hear that I'm doing a great job. People are like, oh, I shouldn't need that, or that's stupid, or like, I don't want to have to need that. It's like, why? Why don't you want to need what you need? How good would it feel to have somebody like, man, what you're doing is just so beautiful. Thank you. And what if I asked for that? I want to hear like how I want to hear that meal I cooked was like the best meal in the world. And someone can say that was the best meal in the world. And it's like easy. I'm receiving what I need. Another framework to help when you're like feeling really challenged around needs is when you can clearly identify your needs. That's the first step. You have to identify your needs. You have to be able to identify your needs. Then you got to be able to move toward your needs, mobilize, and then you got to be able to actually receive the thing that you want or that you need, right?
That's always my edge. Like, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Receiving.
I mean, that's helpful too, to identify like where you are in that cycle, because that's the cycle of attachment, right? Ooh, I have a need. I'm a little baby. I'm crying. I need something. I need play. I need my diaper change. Ooh, okay. Someone comes, they help me. I mobilize toward my need. And then I got my need met. Okay, I can rest. I'm safe. I can settle. And then another need comes up. Oh, I'm hungry. Okay, I'm whining again. Oh, someone comes. I get the food. Okay, it's safe to need. I get my needs met, right? And a baby can't get their needs met on their own. So you can't heal attachment wounds around needs by yourself. So it has to be, and that's why it's like start with something that feels easy, whether it's nature, whether it's, a higher power or some sort of resource that's a little bit more in your internal vision. And then it can start to spread out with people. But what I was going to say is being able to identify and share what you need is the greatest gift to the people that you're in relationship with. It is the deepest fucking gift. And I've seen this in my personal experience and with others over and over and over again, is when they can say clearly, and this is part of what happened in my big grief portal with my mom. It's like, fuck y'all, like, I don't know who I am. Like, I don't know what I do. I don't know like what my value is. And so I sent like an SOS message to like probably 7 of my close friends and was like, I'm feeling really lost, really like in the hole of despair. What I need is to have you send me a voice memo telling me what you think is amazing, genius, beautiful about me. I don't think I can talk on the phone right now. I don't want text. This is what I need. I need to hear it. And the way that bonded some of those friendships, it took them from like level 5 to like a 9.
Yeah.
Because one, they felt like I was letting them in. They got to be a part of something that was really deep and vulnerable and beautiful. They got to share their heart with me. And then they were like, holy shit, she just asked for that. Maybe I can too.
Yeah.
Whoa. It's a real big gift. So we're not guessing. And everybody is craving connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in partnership, like what a gift for your partner. I can
Such a gift.
give her what she needs. I know exactly what she needs, and I can ask what I need. And like you talk about that infinity loop, right? Like when I focus on like giving him the love that he wants in the way that he's asking for, then I free up the space to receive the, like it creates this beautiful loop instead of, like you said, guessing and falling
Yeah.
short and the shame around both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what happens for a lot of women in, heterosexual partnership is I see this dynamic a lot. The woman feels like, oh, I never get my needs met. I can't get what I need. And it's just this constant disappointment and resentment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then their partner, and this isn't a loving dynamic for the most part. Oh, God, what all they want is to be able to like really give her what she needs. But it creates this kind of like mother son dynamic, and the man just feels like I can never get it right. It doesn't matter
Yep.
what I do, it's never good enough.
Yep.
And then the cycle just continues. I mean, that's a whole other can of worms with
Yeah, I know. We could
dynamic
open that one.
partnership, but
Yeah, yeah. I think just for the sake of time, we'll transition. We will maybe use anger as a little portal into sexuality.
yeah. Oh, cool. um so part of coming into your power is being able to express healthy anger. It's a part of self-protection. And a lot of women's wounding, just in general and in this culture, and then in relationship to sexuality, is this feeling of like, I can't protect myself. I can't stand up for myself. Things are happening that I don't want to be happening, or they're happening too fast or too soon, or I'm not getting touch that I like, or any number of things. So accessing healthy rage is a lot of times what helps women come out of collapse, come out of a freeze state. And, there's so much mental clouding and judgment around what anger means. And because also a lot of women have had negative experiences of anger coming at them.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to be angry like men, or I don't want to be violent, or I don't want to be blah, 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 blah. But they're, and what's happening then is because the way that they've seen anger has been distorted or more toxic, they just cut that part of themselves off. And then again, anytime we have a fragmented piece, we're gonna not feel whole. And part of my sexuality training is based in Tantra. And in Tantra, they believe like all emotions are a portal, can be a portal to pleasure. All emotions can be a portal to consciousness. Like everything can be a portal to deeper awakening. And when women have a safe container where they can rage, where they can get mad, their power turns on, their fire turns on, their needs turn on, their desires turn on. Because most of us were holding a lot of grief and a lot of fucking anger and resentment of the things we didn't have, of the things we didn't get, the things we got that we didn't want.
Yeah.
Whether that's in sexuality or just in this culture in general. And so again, how do we reclaim what's on the other side if we don't actually feel what's blocking it? You're not going to be able to, fully step into the depth of your wild sexual power by trying to skirt around anger, or skirt around your grief, or skirt around your feelings. Not being able to feel is part of what keeps women desensitized. to their sensuality and their pleasure. And, you know, in my work too, I've seen this in my personal experience and with others, it's like, you can have an anger orgasm. Anger can feel fucking amazing. And it doesn't have to like shred your partner in half.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious in there, like what the step would be, or like, the creating safety or the creating permission, right? Because I think that there's so much desire once women do start to get curious about that, like, oh, like maybe there are other parts of me that could be allowed in the bedroom. Maybe emotions could, like, maybe I don't have to kind of do this this put on a show thing that we are all taught to do,
Avoidance.
to
Yeah.
be desirable. What's like one thing, maybe it's the 3 minute game, or just like one thing that you would offer if someone's like, yeah, I wonder what it would be like to play with, to let a little bit of anger, but I don't want to freak my partner out.
Hmm. Well, there's two things that I'll speak to. So if you want to do it a little bit more covertly, just on your own, what I mean, this is why it's really cool to be able to do this in community, because it becomes a lot easier when there's that level of like communal permission. But for me, it's like, okay, I'm gonna map out like the wrestling ring, or like I'm gonna create like a little container for myself, right? And this is a space of permission where I can step in and I can feel some of my anger.
Hmm.
What often happens is people don't want anger to be related to their dominant personality, like who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So, who could you call on? Who could you embody? What role could you play? That anger could be fun, or anger could be valid, or you could go for it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So, embody some, like, do your own little kind of like, not sexual, but, or could be sexual, role play. Like, okay, what if, and set a timer, could be 2 minutes. I'm going to give space to my anger. And then, you start to have the experience of like, it's safe to feel anger. Maybe it even feels good to feel anger. A
Mm.
lot of times it feels very clearing to feel anger. There's a lot more
Yeah.
space. And then if it starts to show up in sex, you can be a little bit playful with it. You can, like, make some sound, take deeper breaths, imagine embodying that like fiery superhero or whatever it is. And you don't have to necessarily like say that to your partner, just experiment. Or you can say
Mm-hmm.
beforehand, I don't know, anger might come up. I might like start gritting my teeth. That cool? Like, yeah, fuck it. If you
Yeah.
want to explore with your partner, um, is there like an animal that each of you can embody to just like get weird and have
Mm.
fun? Or maybe again, it's when I first started like really unwinding all the shit that was in my body around my sexuality, Kevin and I would have sex and I would like scream into a pillow for 5 minutes.
Mm.
But part of that was like me saying, like, yeah, there's a lot coming up. I need to know that I have permission to just like go for it. And he was able to just hold me through it. And then it's like a whole other deeper layer of connection. That's not like,
Mm-hmm.
I just need to be feeling pleasure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about there, but
Yeah. 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 So juicy. So I want to hear about your new offering, about what you're passionate about right now, and what that looks like and feels like, and anything around there that you want to share.
yeah. So I've been working on a new program called Slow. It's a 9-month sexuality journey initiation, just into just like the juiciest sensuality and power, and like really this reclamation of my own body and my own sexuality.
Mm.
So I'm really excited about this because when I was like in the underworld portal and also teaching threshold, like sexuality kind of felt like yeah, when is that gonna when is that gonna come back? It was kind of like I had to put it on the shelf. And
Yeah.
now in this mother energy and in this kind of like new woman that I am, yeah, I'm going to be teaching sexuality really differently. So I'm
Mm.
really excited about that. And again, it's like over a juicy length of time. There's
Yeah.
going to be rituals, practices, live calls. We're going to have a relationship salon. Like, and there's going to be an
Mm.
optional retreat. And yeah, I just like want to create a space that's like, I don't know, it just feels like a hot summer day, like biting into a peach, just
Mm.
like juicy and sensual. And it smells like jasmine and the wind is blowing. And, it's just like yummy.
Yeah.
It's like a 5 course meal rather than like the Wendy's drive
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
So there's going to be so many like tools and practices, but it's less about like teaching technique. There's going to be some of that. And it's more about like, okay, I'm stepping into this journey to really embody and wake up my sensual, erotic woman. And
Mm.
then who do I get to be if that's alive? And I
Yeah.
love, like, I think the only way I'm really going to teach sexuality from now on is in group, because it's
Mm.
so powerful and it creates such a momentum. Like there's a field holding you. It's not just you alone, rather than, I get private coaching and then I go into like my normal everyday world and it's me up against all of my stuff, the cultural stuff. It's like, I think in a community, and this is how I learned, was like in a large community. It's like that place to orient back to,
Mm. Yeah.
you know, like, oh yeah, there's this other way that we've been learning and that everybody's been working with and embodying, of like, oh, I could move through the world connected to my pussy rather
Mm.
than scared of, you know, owning that or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and what might happen from there if I'm connected to this part of me? Who do I get to be in the world, like you said? Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That sounds
Yeah.
delicious. So
It's
if
going to
people
be.
want to find out more about that and all of you, where would they go?
Good question. Probably Instagram. I do have a website up right now, but I'm in the process. Hopefully it'll be done in the next week or so of having a whole new site with all the things.
Mm.
Um, so Slow is not available for purchase yet or for enrollment yet, but it will be in the next week or two.
Mm.
And that's the main way that you can work with me right now. I will probably, not 100% sure, but probably be doing Threshold again as well,
Mm.
which will start in the fall. Um, yeah, we've got some other juicies on the horizon, but those are the big two right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And just a couple little last lightning questions, real quick. Looking like where you are now and like feeling the woman you are now, what would you tell, advice, or just anything to your 12-year-old self?
Mm. Well, there's part of me that's like, wow, I'm really proud of that little one, um, for what she did do. But I think, yeah, just like keep trusting yourself, keep trusting your knowing, even though you can't see it anywhere outside of you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Keep finding the wise women. They're there.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah, that's a good one. And what is your go-to when you're in a dark place? Like, not necessarily to get out of it or change it, but like to meet it. What really supports you in that?
Hmm. There's kind of three things. One is music. I
Mm,
always have like a couple songs that like um, help me move into like a more spiritual state. And that
mm-hmm,
always kind of helps contextualize the darkness a little bit.
mm,
That along with connecting with the Great Mother. So whether that's writing to her or listening to a song about her, or I have this exercise where I set up pillows and I will put her on one pillow and me on the other and talk to her,
I
have
love
her talk
that
back
one.
to me.
I
It's
love
so
it.
good.
So good.
Um, and yeah, something that helps me zoom out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, or like feel held in the experience,
Mm. Yeah.
right? Something that feels like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with where I am. It feels so dark because I don't feel held in it. So music, Great Mother, and then connected with Great Mother Nature. I just
Mm.
go outside, flowers, grass,
Yeah.
laying in the grass,
Yeah. Mm.
good food.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then last question, one thing, one direction you would point or practice or resource or information you'd point women to right now with everything going on in the world, and then also just with this whole conversation around sexuality and mother, and like something to offer
Mm.
a woman that's listening.
Mm. So what is like again asking to be shared is yeah, just anything that helps you connect to the soul threads. Like what, and that feels really ambiguous, but I'm like, it doesn't feel like, oh, go listen to this person or go read this book, or, that might be some of it, but ooh, okay, here it is. Yeah, start feeling into that great mother, great divine feminine energy for you. What's beautiful about that is it will show up any way that you need it to show up in any form.
Mm-hmm.
And, off like, I know some people might not like the word prayer. I like it. There isn't really a good equivalent. It's just the prayer of like, show me where to
Mm-hmm.
go, show me what to do. And then having the bravery to listen.
Yeah.
Help me find the right people, help me find the teacher, help me find the book, help me, help me, help me, help me, show me.
Mm. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, as John O'Donohue says, prayer's the bridge between longing and belonging. Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Whitney. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your beautiful medicine with the world, and just
Yeah.
deep gratitude for everything that you've given me and been a model of for me and for so many women. And yeah, thank you so
Mm,
much. Is there
so
anything else you
welcome.
want to say?
Mm. Just listening, see if there's anything else. Just the invitation of like, now's the time, and if not now, when? And world's ready for you.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here.